Evening shadows stretched across Tennessee highlands as Captain Robert Dalton checked his watch. April 1879. 15 families had gathered in Knoxville, wagons loaded, heading west into Cumberland Mountains. Within days, 28 souls would vanish without explanation, sparking a mystery haunting those mountains today. Dalton, at 45, had weathered hands that guided countless settlers through hostile country. His wife, Catherine, stood beside him, adjusting her traveling cloak. Something felt wrong that morning, a heaviness she couldn't name. Their 2 children waited in the lead wagon. The families represented America's hope. Marcus Flynn, a wheelwright with his expecting wife. The Chambers family, who'd sold their business. Old Gustav Nordstrom, a Swedish carpenter. Young Daniel Worth, barely 20, but legendary as tracker. Dawn broke over limestone ridges and wagons rolled southward. Excitement faded as mountains rose like a dark wall. By day 3, they'd penetrated deep into territory few knew. Trails wound through gorges alongside crystal streams. But nights brought unsettling sounds. Owls called with almost human voices. People heard voices from distant ridges where no settlements existed. Catherine slept poorly after forgotten dreams. On April 17th evening, they camped beside Whisper Creek. Cold water bubbled from limestone springs. Wagons formed the traditional circle, livestock secured. But as darkness fell, changes began. Temperature plummeted. Mist rose with unnatural speed, thickening until visibility shrank to feet. Daniel Worth, standing guard, felt invisible eyes watching. He glimpsed shadows too large to be wind-blown branches. When he called challenges, his voice seemed absorbed, producing no echo. Livestock grew agitated. Mothers pulled children close. Fathers checked rifles. Then, somewhere between midnight and dawn, something happened that erased 28 people as if they'd never lived. Cumberland Mountains in 1879 still reeled from civil war. Brother had fought brother in vicious campaigns. Conflict had ended 14 years earlier, but old grudges died hard. Geography contributed to lawlessness. Trapper Ezra Morrison encountered the wagon train on April 16th afternoon. Everything appeared normal. He spoke with Dalton, sharing trail information and warning about a building storm. Morrison remembered livestock's strange behavior, constantly looking back as if something followed. Dogs whined and paced strangely. Morrison was last to see them intact. That evening, camping 5 miles upstream, he saw campfire glow reflecting off limestone bluffs, heard distant cattle sounds and children's voices. Next morning, Morrison found only empty wilderness. The clearing showed occupation, flattened grass and cold fire pits, but wagons, people, animals, gone. No tracks led away. Morrison searched all day, finding scattered evidence, broken wheel spoke, fabric scraps, abandoned meal remains. No trail explained how an entire wagon train departed. Morrison rode to the nearest settlement, reporting to Constable Brightwell, who organized a search party. Sheriff William Cross assembled 20 experienced woodsmen. Penetrating deeper, they encountered phenomena defying explanation. The campsite remained unnaturally fresh despite a week passing. Grass lay flattened. Most puzzling, complete absence of scavenger activity. Thomas Whitfield examined the site with confusion. These people simply vanished. No trail anywhere. 2 miles downstream, searchers found a destroyed wagon wheel twisted as if caught in a vise. Wood splinters embedded in nearby trees, suggesting tremendous force. The iron rim wrapped around an oak trunk, requiring enormous strength, yet showed no tool marks. 5 days into the search, Deputy Regan investigated an old mine shaft. At the bottom of a limestone sinkhole 30 feet deep, he found campfire remains arranged in a circle. Fires had burned with tremendous heat, calcifying surrounding limestone. Most disturbing were objects placed at the center: Catherine Dalton's wedding ring, a child's book bearing Sarah Chambers' name, Gustav Nordstrom's Bible, and most chilling, a photograph of the wagon train. Every face had been carefully scratched out, obliterating features with methodical precision. Cross collected these items, but suspected dealing with something beyond conventional law enforcement. Theories multiplied. Guerrilla ambush? No violence evidence. Indian attack? Remaining tribes lacked numbers. Natural disasters? Would leave wreckage. Into the second week, supernatural reports emerged. Wagon reported seeing lights moving through forest, suggesting people carrying lanterns. He followed nearly an hour, but each time he seemed close, lights vanished, only to reappear in locations requiring hours to reach. At dawn, lights disappeared completely. Similar sightings followed, always same area, always disappearing without physical evidence. Searchers noticed phenomena: sounds from no identifiable source, sudden temperature changes, overwhelming sense of being watched. Reports of voices echoing through valleys on still nights, distinctly human voices, men, women, children, speaking in conversational tones, sometimes discussing ordinary subjects, other times taking notes of urgency or distress. Thomas Whitfield reported an encounter haunting him forever. Investigating a canyon, he heard what sounded like a child crying. Following the sound, he emerged into a small clearing. There sat a small figure on a fallen log, appearing to be a young girl. The child cried softly. Whitfield approached, speaking gently. But as he drew closer, crying stopped, and the figure began turning. Whitfield would never forget seeing where her face should have been. Instead of features, only smooth, blank surface reflecting moonlight. No eyes, nose, mouth, nothing, except head shape and long hair framing terrible emptiness. For seconds, Whitfield stood frozen. Then the figure began rising, moving with fluid grace, unnatural for a child. As it stood, it grew taller, looming over him. His paralysis broke, and he ran with speed he hadn't felt since his last cavalry charge. Looking back, the clearing was empty, but crying had resumed, seeming to come from all directions. The mystery attracted attention beyond regional borders. The Nashville Banner dispatched correspondent Edward Blake. After 2 weeks, Blake acknowledged the wagon train's fate defied explanation. Blake's investigation uncovered additional evidence. 8 miles from the campsite, he found wagon ruts leading to the base of a sheer limestone cliff. No gap, no cave entrance, no route. He discovered campsites in places no wagon train could reach. Some on narrow ledges high up cliffs accessible only to climbers. Most disturbing came when guides took him to Shadow Cavern, 12 miles southeast. Voices could be heard echoing from deepest recesses. Blake ventured short distance into the cave, guided by torchlight, hearing distant conversation. The voices were distorted, but unmistakably human. Listening carefully, Blake detected notes of distress, conversations punctuated by crying. At one point, he heard what sounded like a woman calling for her children, her voice echoing with desperation that made his blood run cold. Blake's final report acknowledged, despite investigation, he'd been unable to determine what happened to the 28 souls who vanished in 1879. He wrote that something happened in those ancient mountains, challenging our understanding, forcing us to confront possibilities our rational minds are reluctant to accept. The mystery remains unsolved more than a century and 4 decades later.
Modern hikers still report encounters echoing early searchers' experiences. Ghostly figures still seen on moonlit nights, voices still echo from limestone caves. 28 souls departed Knoxville on a bright spring morning in 1879. They carried hopes and dreams sustaining American pioneers, but the mountains swallowed them as completely as if they'd never existed, leaving only questions haunting investigators. Were they victims of human violence, natural disaster, or something transcending both? Did they discover something in those ancient hills meant to remain hidden? Or did they encounter forces operating according to laws human understanding has not penetrated? The answers remain locked in limestone caverns and shadowed valleys, guarded by silence and protected by time. For those brave enough to venture into deepest hollows where wagon wheels once rolled, the mystery lives on.
Make sure to like this video, share it with fellow history lovers, and subscribe for more untold frontier legends and unexplained historical disappearances.